On this week's episode of Comics Controllers, we talk about a new comic called Southern Bastards by Jason Aaron. We also talk about a ton of video game news, from Twitch and YouTube to DayZ hackers, and all the way down to Microsoft backpedaling on the Kinect. All that and more on this, episode 21, Google Bastards. Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Comics and Controllers. As always, I'm Kyle, joined by my co-host Steven.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good, Steven. So what's on the docket today for our comic book side of things?
Well, I'm a huge Jason Aaron fan, so I thought we needed to take a look at Southern Bastards.
Well, we are both Southern, and we might both be a bit of a bastard. So let's talk about ourselves.
That sounds great. For those of you who don't know, Jason Aaron is one of what, not too long ago, he was called one of comics like Young Guns. He's been around for a while, but he's, kind of come up and he's been doing a lot of really good stuff over the past few years. One comic that I will compare, the one that we're reviewing to a lot today, is Scout, which is probably one of his best things I think he's done, but that's partially because it's his completely original idea, whereas like two of the other things he's done that's really big, of course, right now is like Wolverine and Thor. He did a run on Thor. Yeah. However, I think one of his best Marvel runs, if you can ever pick it up, is he did a Punisher Max run that explained kind of the origins of the Kingpin and all that, and I thought that was great.
I think that was like one of his first major runs too, wasn't it? Was Punisher Max. Like, I don't think he had done any really other major Marvel work before that.
He, I believe at the time, had done one other stint on Wolverine.
Okay.
But Punisher was when I really got into him. And Scout is just one of those books that a lot of people who even had heard of the book or whatever didn't know who was actually writing it, because, like I said, Jason Aaron was still kind of coming up.
Yeah.
But the artist on this book is Jason Latour, and I think he's also a co-creator on the book as well. But they are both very talented individuals, and Southern Bastards is... It reminds me a lot of Scout in the sense that so far it doesn't appear there's anything supernatural or whatever. This is a situation where he is taking kind of a smaller group of people and showing what happens in some of these areas, where Scout focuses on, a modern Indian reservation. This seems to focus on a small town in the middle of nowhere, as it is even described in the earlier part of the book. But
yeah, like the town's claim to fame is that it's high school football teams won 4 championships for the state.
Yeah, and basically the story is about a kid. Or a person who moved away when he was a kid from this town, and he is now an old man, and he is returning to the town to clean out the house, his family home, because the person who was living there is now too old to maintain the house and has moved into a nursing home. So ideally, he has decided to come back to this town for a few days and clean out everything. But of course, as you would expect, he runs into several people, and a situation occurs, and he cannot stand seeing this situation unfold the way it does, and so he steps in, of causing himself probably a lot of problems in the future, just judging by how the story's going. I think we've met a couple of really interesting characters in the book so far, and I think it's interesting to note that they give the main character a little bit of back history more by talking about his father, who was the former sheriff of the town, and apparently who most people in the town hated. So, I thought that was some interesting characterization without needless exposition.
Yeah, I got the vibe that his father was not a good sheriff. Like, he probably did his job well, but he was kind of a terrible person.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't Andy Griffith.
Right. And I think we're going to get a lot more about his father. I think as these issues go along, I think they're going to continue this trend to, kind of tell more about the character through his father and through his father's actions. And probably towards few issues in, really set them apart. Make sure that we as the audience understand how his son differs from his dad. And I think one of the last lines of this comic is he's talking to someone on an answering machine. I don't think we're ever actually told who it is. We just kind of assume it's either his wife or somebody he lives with or something like that. And he actually tells him, "I never told you about my father." And the way he explains it, it's almost like there's a reason I never told you about my father.
Yeah. So this guy is. This is my thought on the main character of this: is that he's returned to. It's a small southern town. He's returned to this small southern town to deal with things. He's been gone for a while. I have a feeling there's going to be things that are going to pop up where it's like he's not your typical southern man from a town like this. Like. Yeah. We don't know who's on the voicemail, but my thought was like the way things are going. I was like, I wonder if this might be his gay lover. I don't know if that's the case, but that was the first thing I thought.
I had a similar thought, but there's no evidence really that I saw to support or detract from that. So it could go other ways.
It's completely just I don't know. Maybe this is a possibility, but there's no evidence supporting it.
He also seems like a person who, whether it's from his father or whatever, like. He seems like a person who really, when he saves that guy, small spoiler alert, like one of the first things is after the guy is like telling him how bad he effed up by doing that, is this first thing is like, well, should I have not done that? Like almost would you prefer to I left you there?
Well, the guy's response is yeah.
Yeah. And I think that says a lot about the character too, is he's not a Boy Scout. He did the right thing because I think he couldn't stand not doing that. But at the same time, too, I think he'd be willing to crack a few heads if he needed to, Yeah,
one thing, too, about this comic I really like is that growing up in the South and not really being from a small southern town, but having been into small southern towns and knowing people from them.
Yes.
This has a feel of some of those towns where it's like they're really like cliques. Like everybody in the town knows each other, and they know everybody's business. Doesn't matter what it is. Everybody knows what's going on. And if you're an outsider in that, it's a very awkward feel. And they make sure it's awkward that you're here. But you're not really accepted. You can't really move into one of these areas easily. Yeah. And I felt that that was conveyed very well by Jason Aaron in this. And I didn't know until Steven told me I should read his letter in the back of the book that Jason Aaron is from a small town in Alabama. I mean, it's called Jasper, which is only known for two things, and one of which is the boxer butter beans from there. So his town's basically known for people being from it, and that's about it.
One thing I will say, and I thought that the character that he saves again pretty much says in the beginning, it's like, hey, I know everybody who's from around here, and I recognize you. Yeah. So that kind of gives that feeling. Also, my family, not myself, but my family, my parents are from probably the smallest town in Georgia, and it's literally 2 streets and some houses. Mm-hmm. And I've heard my brother and sister who had to grow up in that town in their youth tell me stories about that, and it seems very similar. Also, apparently, and I don't know if this is just a theme or, because apparently there's some of this is based in reality according to my siblings' stories. But apparently, like every small town sheriff or police department is somehow corrupt in one way or the other.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Based on stories I've heard from the time that my father worked he basically worked as the loan officer at the only bank in this town, and the bank had been corrupt to the point where like people would just go into the bank and they would say, I need a loan, and the guy would just give them money. Which that's not how a bank works. For people don't know. You have to give them collateral. And even if you couldn't give them collateral and you don't have enough credit, your credit's bad, you're not going to get a loan. But that's how the guy was running the bank. And so the guy who owned the bank, who was from a larger company, was like, no. And he fired him, and he hired my dad and another guy to come in and handle it. But he used to tell me about the police force in this town and how it was just out of control. Like, it was just, they would do whatever they wanted to because they could. I mean, no one's going to stop them. They're the ones who run the town for the most part.
Yeah. And that's why it wasn't hard to kind of buy into that in this, because he mentions the new sheriff at one point. He mentions how the town's run. And I told, like I said, I saw a lot of people who were really saying that this was a good comic, and I agree with that. I really enjoyed reading it.
I agree too. I know I hate on most of the stuff you get me to read, but this was actually really good.
Yeah, thank you. Finally, some respect. No, I will say I did
get
have
one.
I do have two small problems with it. My first problem is that there's a lot of wasted space in this comic, in my opinion. Some of the art is really good. It's a particular style that I wasn't sure about at first. The reason I wasn't really sure about it first was the fading of the voice bubbles. The dialogue bubbles kind of looked weird at first, but it works. It fits the story. It works great, and the art's really good, especially towards the end. But there's a lot of wasted space in the sense that there's a lot of panels that are trying to, without using words, get you to get certain ideas of what's going on and themes of stuff, especially towards the end. But I felt like this was almost like a teaser. Like, hey, we want to set up a little bit of backstory, but there could have been a lot more. We could have gotten a lot more information. We could have gotten a lot more stuff. And maybe after we read the next few issues, that will not be an issue because the anticipation actually helped the story. I can't say that yet, though, because I haven't read the next few issues. But to add on to that, and the reason why I also think I was a little irked at the lack of content, I guess, not page content, but panel content, is that the comic book is $3.50, which is, not excessively high for a comic, but I can't imagine wanting to drop $3.50 on an unproven comic. Had Jason Aaron's name not been on this, I can't, say I would have paid that much for a first issue of a new comic unless somebody recommended it.
I was gonna say, well, it's sad that $3.50 we're thinking that's not that bad, but that's really expensive for like 20-something pages.
Well, I say that because I know several that are $3.99. But yes, that is expensive for a comic that's expensive. And DC had that whole initiative that they started not too long ago to try not to charge anything. They didn't charge over $2.99 for any comic that didn't have extra content to warrant the extra charge. And I understand that with your smaller companies and stuff like that, sometimes if they pay the artist more, if they do certain things, they have to charge more for the comic to make up the cost. I get that. It's Image. It's not one of the major two. But I'm just saying, I think that price may deter people from buying it who may have just wanted to pick it up, especially if they don't know who Jason Aaron is,
Well, I think that's a problem with comics in general, is that because they're so expensive, people are very unlikely, even the $3 ones, I think people are very unlikely just to be like, that looks interesting. I'll go ahead and snag that. It's usually like, $3 for something and it may be garbage? No, thank you. I'll just wait. And I think that, and I understand, like you said, why they do it, because they're a smaller company. They have much smaller runs, so they have to try to make the money they can off of what they've got. But I just think that it's detrimental to the what do you call it? The industry as a whole, having comics this expensive, because especially when you have younger kids now growing up buying manga, and they can for $5 or $6 get 100-something pages of a manga rather than just 22.
Right.
So the industry's not marketing itself well to a younger generation, but I don't know if they're even trying to when it comes to that.
Who knows? I don't know. I know. Marvel's marketing a lot of pulling in their younger fans through their movies. So
yeah, it's true.
Yeah. The other thing I will say, I forgot to mention about the artist. I did like how, if you notice, like the two examples I remember. So when the dog barks and sniffs at everything, instead of having, usually in a lot of comics, it's not as expressive. Like, he'll actually, when the dog is growling, he'll actually write the GRRRR across the entire page. And like when the guy's pissing, it actually has the sound effect for it going all around the urine stream. So like they got really expressive with some of the way they were doing the art in here. And again, I thought that added kind of an extra flair to it. It made it seem almost more like somebody sitting down telling you, you have those great storytellers that would tell you about the giant catfish, and then they kind of act it out, and so that's kind of what this seems like, with the way they were doing the art and telling everything. but I don't know. There's a lot of really good stuff in here. I love when he's talking about his dad being buried with the baseball bat and it grew the tree out of his grave and everything. I don't know. There was some really neat stuff that sounds like, again, going back to the whole, it could have been like a tall tale or a epic story. So I will definitely be reading the next issue.
Yeah, I would recommend that if you haven't, you pick this up. It's worth it. It's really good, and I think it's got me interested enough that I'm willing to read the rest of it, which isn't common. I usually, I read it, and I'm like, okay, well, I probably won't read any more of it. Yeah. But this one's good. I'd pick it up. If you're not from the South and you want to see what a small town is like, he's got it written really well.
Right.
So you can really get the feel of what it's like to be an outsider in a small town, and just see kind of how the politics in a small town work, too.
Yeah, I would also just say that I know, and I'm not knocking on you. I know you're a little bit picky.
Yeah.
Especially in smaller companies like Image, Dark Horse, Top Cow, all that. Sometimes it really takes a couple of issues for a comic to get going. And I am the first person to say that can suck sometimes because you don't want to pay the cover price for 2 or 3 issues if it's not going to really hook you in until the 3rd or 4th issue. However, this does a good job of this and Lazarus, I think, are the last 2 things that have really just hooked me from like issue 1, and I was like, okay, I wanted to know more right then. So I definitely think this is worth a shot.
Agreed. All right, so from the comics to the controllers, I'm going to talk about several things that have actually popped up in the video game world recently. And it's kind of funny because, I a little bit pull the curtains back behind the scenes. Oftentimes we struggle to find really good things to talk about when it comes to video games. Like every now and then there'll be a story. It's like, yeah, we can talk about that. But it seems that, like, for the most part, the news on video games has been kind of dead. And it's that time of year. Yeah. Where it starts to pick back up because of E3 and summer stuff going on and video games kind of start coming out again. But over the last couple weeks, there have been several major things that have come out. And we're just going to talk about 3 of them. 3 that we feel are probably pretty big and people should acknowledge for various reasons. So the first is that there's a rumor currently circulating. I don't think it's been confirmed by either company involved yet. But supposedly YouTube, which means Google, is going to purchase Twitch TV for $1 billion.
Now, this is still in the rumor stage, right? I don't think it's been confirmed.
Yes, neither company has confirmed or denied it from what I've been able to see. Now, this
is probably going to happen.
Yeah, I could see it occurring. And this is probably not a good thing in the long run. Like, there might be some good stuff that comes from it, like maybe Twitch will get better support, because I know that's been a problem with it. Right. Like, sometimes the servers can't handle a lot of stuff. The Twitch Plays Pokemon situation actually was an example. Like, they could not handle that much chat interface through their servers. They had to change stuff on it so it would work. But I personally, and a lot of other analysts are saying the same thing, they don't think in the long run this is a good thing for Twitch TV.
I can see that. I think the best thing that I noted out of this is that it's going to bring a lot more attention, I believe, to esports.
Yeah.
Which will be good for that, and be good for people who like esports and watch it and stuff like that. But I can see in the long run how, for those of you who don't know, Twitch's community is a lot different than YouTube's.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It is. And I think part of the Twitch community, too, is it's like people kind of try to help each other on there, too. Like, I'll see people like, hey, I'm about to sign off. Let me see who else is on. Oh, this guy's really good streamer. Go rate him and go let him know that I sent you and hang around and watch him. And so people will send viewers to other people to try to spread a word of people who are really good streamers and stuff like that.
Yeah. And maybe it's just me. Now, I definitely do more YouTube than I do Twitch, but lately I have a lot of friends who have been streaming a lot more on Twitch. Mm-hmm. And the Twitch community just overall seems less negative.
Yeah,
seems a lot less negative.
It kind of depends on, too, the number of people in there. Like, the smaller the chat room, usually the better it is. Of course, I've been in those ones where there's like 10,000 people, and it's pretty terrible. But you have moderators, too, which you don't have on YouTube. So a moderator can just regulate on you.
Right,
They can be like, you're banned. Or, I'm going to make it subscribers only mode, so I don't have to hear all you people who are just here to be annoying.
Right, yeah.
But the thing is that Twitch is actually, it's the fourth largest source of traffic on the entire internet right now, and it was not designed to be that. Like, it was not designed to ever get that big. And so it's had a lot of problems. And YouTube coming in can probably help with that because they have an infrastructure to set it up. But the problem with YouTube is going to be all the copyright stuff.
Now, how much, yeah, that's true. How much do you think part of this is the console integration? Like how now on Xbox and PS4, or Xbox One and PS4, you can just stream straight to Twitch?
Not a lot. I don't think that's really used that much. I mean, I'm not saying it's not used, but I don't think it's a huge proportion of it.
At least not yet. I think
I think that's been more of a headache for Twitch than anything.
I'm sure it has. I've heard as much. But
yeah.
I think when more people buy the consoles and we get more games that people want to start streaming and stuff like that on there, I think you'll see a jump in that. But right now, I think you're right. It's not as big of a deal.
Yeah. I mean, I think with the copyright problem is going to occur because, with YouTube, anything that somewhat can try to be copyrighted, they just ding your video and pull it down and you get wrecked. On Twitch, though, a lot of streamers will play copyrighted music in the background when they're playing. But if you have some kind of thing that's auto-pulling stuff down, pretty much every streamer on Twitch is going to get taken down.
Yeah, I saw somebody's comments like, I can't wait to stream now and get my stream pulled for the game I created. And the reason is because that has happened on YouTube.
Yep.
People who own the rights to their game are still getting flagged,
I mean, I think this is also typical Google. In fact, the purchase of YouTube by Google was because Google Video was garbage, but YouTube was better. So rather than try to compete, they just bought the competitor and replaced their garbage version with the better version.
Right, yeah.
And Google has put streaming in YouTube, but it's terrible. I mean, it is bad. Like, it's painful to use. And I think this could be their attempt of like, well, streaming's taking off. Let's try to do it on our platform. Oh, we suck. Let's just throw money at the problem and buy the other company and get them to do it for us instead.
So if they buy Twitch and then buy Blip, they're pretty much a monopoly,
they're a monopoly
at that point,
yeah.
right?
The only other
Blip's going to be like the only other big one, right?
I mean, Blip's not even that big, but it's compared. Like the only other major video streaming service is Vimeo, and it's not really a competitor.
Don't they have some agreement with YouTube though? Last I looked.
I don't know. They might. My understanding with Vimeo is that like they're a lot more strict on what goes up. Like I couldn't just record my cat doing something stupid and post it up there. It has to be like artistic or whatever you consider artistic. They're like I said, they're a lot more strict, and they're not really a competitor. And I've read where YouTubers have talked about how much they hate YouTube, but they're like, there's nothing I can do. And people are like, well, what about this competitor? It's like, yeah, I could go there, but none of my fans are going to go there, and there's not enough people there, so there's no money in it.
I'm on a forum with a bunch of YouTubers because I make YouTube videos, and pretty much everybody I've always seen is like, your options are this and Blip. And Blip's much harder to get people to come to. So
yeah, and they don't have as good of a partnership, I'm sure, either, because they don't make as much money. Just like Twitch has a Twitch partnership. It's really not that great. Most people I know who've had to deal with it, I've heard them complain about how you really don't make any money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you don't make any money, but like the amount of money they charge for stuff, you barely see any of it. And then people are always like, well, what about this other one? Like, there's a new one that's popped up, Hitbox. Like, yeah, the highest person on Hitbox will have like 100 viewers. Yeah. When like there are people on Twitch who aren't even major streamers, and they'll have 400 and 500 just because they're streaming something people want to watch.
Right.
That's not really an alternative, And it's not. They also don't really have. While Twitch is not a great site, they're nowhere near as good as Twitch. They don't have the infrastructure or the stuff to run it, so it falls short. So you can't really just say, we'll go somewhere else, because there's really nowhere else to go if YouTube buys them. So that's one of the things we thought we'd mention.
Yeah, and that's something I'm sure we will be hearing a lot more about.
Yeah, like we said, it's still just a rumor, but I wouldn't doubt if it's something we hear officially or unofficially at E3. Either gets confirmed or denied. So, but no one's even denied it right now. It's just kind of like, hey, this is floating out there. What are we going to do? I don't know if it's real or not.
Yeah.
I guess, too, if they bought Twitch, they would get Justin.tv, because aren't they the same?
I think so. If they're not the same, they're very closely connected.
I think they are, because if I remember correctly, Twitch actually started on Justin.tv, and then it actually got so big they moved it off. That's why you have to have a different account for each now, which is stupid, but that's a whole nother argument.
Right.
All right, so on from Twitch and YouTube to talk about DayZ. Okay, so for people who don't know, the saga of DayZ, because that's what it is at this point. So DayZ was initially a mod created for Arma 2 that added kind of like a survival zombie aspect to it, and it was really good. It was a free download.
Good might be exaggerating.
The original DayZ,
it was frustrating.
Well, yeah, it was one of those ones where like you could have fun with it, but it was dealing with PvP, so there's a lot of getting destroyed in it and getting frustrated with it.
You fall off one damn water tower, you lose everything.
Yeah, or you have one guy you think is your friend, and the moment you turn your back, he kills you. Game over. Start over.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
The creators of DayZ were like, well, we're going to make a standalone game. And they've been working on this for a long time. And they finally released like an alpha version of it, saying that the reason they only did the alpha is because people were just complaining it was taking so long, so they got something out there. The problem with the alpha version of DayZ is that it's almost a step backwards from the mod in Arma 2. So it's like, all this work you've done, I've lost all this. I'm basically starting over. And they've lost a developer, and they've talked about how much longer it's going to take them to do stuff. Well, recently, hackers, there's a good chance they've stolen the actual standalone DayZ source code. Now, at first you're like, well, what does that mean? What that means is that if the source code for this game is out in the wild, that cheating is going to be unstoppable.
Yeah.
Because you now have code for the game. You know how the game runs, so it's easier to exploit it, and so you can cheat easier. Because the servers aren't really monitored or anything, they're just something that people are running. And plus, you know how the game runs that, so you can exploit it further. Well, the solution to this is to basically just start over with the source code. And that's not going to happen. This game is taking so long to get where it's at, which is basically nowhere, that they're not going to start over.
I couldn't see them doing that. And the thing, I hate to say this, but like there are already stuff in the game that makes the game hard for people to survive.
Yep.
And so this is one of those games that wouldn't even really seem like it'd be that hard to change a small bit of code, and I mean small bit, and just to make you unkillable. And so completely unfair to anyone else who's not hacking.
Yep. I mean, in games like this where it's all about survival and one death just means you're completely starting over, like this game and Rust, hackers in those make them where they're so unfun and not even worth playing that you just stop. I mean, that's why I haven't played Rust in so long, is that they had done this big thing to stop hacking, and it had stopped, and then it got out of control again, and I was just like, well, it's not fun to play. Like, I take all this time to build up to this level, and then some hacker who's speed hacking just kills me with, like, a knife or something. He takes all my stuff. I'm like, I'm done with this. And that's the same thing that's going to happen. Like, there's already been a lot of streamers and YouTubers who've been playing DayZ who are just like, it's already started getting bad, and I'm just not playing this game anymore.
And I hate to say this, but, like, I had a friend who I played the Arma 2 version, and I had a friend who got in the early access, the alpha, the one that you're talking about, and the glitches were even worse on that one. And so I just can't imagine most people sticking around if it's like, oh, well, now I have to deal with how bad the game is and the hackers. Like you said, it's just probably give up and move on to something else.
Yep. I mean, it's especially for somebody who's streaming and recording videos, if the game doesn't look like fun and you're not having fun, it's going to come through in those videos. And if you just keep getting owned over and over again by hackers, why are you going to record that? You're just going to stop. And a lot of people who, play these video games and make money doing that, if they can't record it, they don't play it. Because it's a waste of time. It's like, well, if I can record it, I can make money on it, I'll do it. But if I'm just doing this and I'm not making any videos, it's a waste of time to do this, so I'm just not going to play it. And that's how a lot of these games get super popular, is because people playing them, people seeing it, and they want to play it further.
Yeah.
And so if people stop playing this, or people see how bad it is, they're going to buy it. Like, that's why I never bought the standalone version of DayZ. Was it didn't look good, and it looked like there was a lot of cheating. And now there's even more because of this, or there will be more.
I know we've had this discussion before, but like DayZ, this version was one of my examples of why I'm not a big fan of early access. And I think this is going to be another one of those games that now, because of this, never actually leaves early access. You know, recently they had the issue with Towns that basically said, "Hey, we're not going to do anymore," and it was technically never finished. And I think we're going to see the same thing with DayZ now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the early access, we've talked about this, but the early access / Kickstarter problem of, hey, here's this game, and you pay this money, we're going to get it to you by this point. You don't get it by that point, and slowly you're waiting and waiting and waiting longer and longer, and the game, by this point, you're like, I don't even really care. I forgot about it. You know? Like, there's one I kickstarted over a year ago, if not 2, called Necro, and I finally got a code for it, and I install it and start playing it, and I'm like, this game's not even done. This is only like the introduction. I was like, what in the heck have you been doing for 2 years?
Yeah.
You know, and that really is why I stopped kickstarting anything, because it's like, I've got so many other Kickstarters out there for video game stuff that I'm not going to invest in anymore, because it's diminishing returns. You're not seeing anything come out of it.
Yeah.
These early access games, by the time they come out, you just don't care anymore, because you've either played the heck out of them, or you've gotten so frustrated with all the bugs, it's just not worth playing.
Yeah. I've kickstarted a couple comics. I've never actually kickstarted a video game because of what you just said.
Yeah, I did a few, and I have seen one of them come to fruition, and it was good. It was a Shadowrun Returns game, and that game was amazing. I loved it, but it wouldn't be for everybody. It had a feeling of the old style game that they had done on like the Genesis, so that's why I liked it so much.
I remember that one.
But there's 2 other ones I kickstarted, and one of them, I don't even think they're in production anymore. I think they're done. I think they got their $2 million, and that's it. Because I haven't seen a video on it in probably 6 months. So. But it doesn't surprise me. I kind of had a feeling what was going to happen with it. After like a couple months of them not really doing anything with it. And then when they did, it was like, wow, this is as far as you've gotten with all this money and time. So. Yeah.
But, so pretty much, I think you're right that this means that DayZ will probably be an afterthought very soon.
Yeah. I think we could probably, in the next several months, get word that they've, shelved DayZ, or they're done with it.
Because at this point, if you're going to redo the entire code, you might as well just make a new game. Make a better game.
Yeah. I agree completely.
Yeah.
All right. So, there's some depressing news again. So, that's more bad news. So, let's see how this third story works out for us with the bad news of video gaming. I don't really think this is a bad one, though.
No, it's not.
So, Microsoft announced that they were going to cut the price on the Xbox One. But the way the price is being cut is they're no longer bundling the Kinect with it.
You know why this irritates me?
Why?
Because when the Xbox One was about to come out, hadn't released yet, they actually released these 2 things online that was explaining how important the Kinect was to the Xbox One experience and why you needed it. And basically made it sound like, oh, well, we can't bundle it without the Kinect. Now, they never actually said those words. I understand that. But it really, like, I went back, because somebody, once this was announced, actually posted the same joke and was like, hey, remember when they told you had to have the Kinect? And I went back and watched them, and it really makes it sound like, oh, the system doesn't really work without the Kinect. And, God, it irritates me, because basically it was somebody was like, oh, well, we're not selling enough units. Okay, well, I guess we'll do that thing they wanted us to do from the beginning. But
you know what that reminds me of? The whole EA SimCity, oh, this game can't run offline. And then after the game failed, they're like, oh, yeah, we can run it offline.
Yeah. And didn't they even try to say, like, they had to, like, change the code, or they had to change some stuff to make it run offline? But, like, they did it within, like, a month.
Even hackers had already done it. Hackers had already made it where you could play it offline, like, within a week of the game being out.
Yeah, and I was like, you're not going to convince me that you guys did that in a month if you really had to go in and change all of that, because that's not true. Same thing with the Xbox thing. Somebody even said, like, to draw up like promotional material and stuff like that takes like 2 months. And some people were like, oh, this was a split second before E3 decision. It's like, no. This took them at least 2 or 3 months to set all this stuff up. So they knew they were going to do this for a little while.
Oh, no. I completely agree. Like, and there's a lot of things that go around behind this that make me think that they were basically trying to force the Kinect onto people. And one of them is that, and I've said this before, years ago, I think it was like 2009, 2010, Microsoft had patented the ability to market ads using video software that records your facial features. So, like, if you're watching a commercial and you look like disturbed, they're like, well, don't show those kind of commercials to them anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes perfect sense when you've got to connect in everybody's house. And that's why one reason they're trying to push it so bad is for those kind of reasons. Another reason that I think they try to push it so bad was that they told all their developers, hey, one of these is going to be with every system. You need to try to integrate this somehow.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of developers since Microsoft announced they're not bundling it with it anymore. And they're like, wait a minute. Yeah. All these games we're developing now require the Kinect, but you're not putting the Kinect with it. Are you serious? You know, we've made all this money and effort, put all this money and effort into using this stupid thing, and you're not now going to supply it to people like you told us you were? So a lot of developers were pissed about that.
I don't blame them.
Me neither.
I don't blame them, but also, like, I know there were some developers that told them initially, hey, we don't want to be forced to work within the boundaries of the Kinect.
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, I don't know. I'll put it this way. This is cool that they're not shipping it with there. This does not actually really make me want to buy an Xbox One anymore. Because of shit like that. Because of, you know, the stuff that makes me go, man, I really don't like the way Microsoft has been doing business lately. And I know some people, you know, have been saying, it's like, oh, but they're going to have better exclusives and stuff like that. Meh, whatever. It's not enough that I really care enough to go get it anytime soon. I may get it eventually. And that's coming from someone who is a giant Halo fan and who will, you know, eventually want to play Halo 5, but I doubt I will get it anytime soon, just because I don't like the way Microsoft has been handling this stuff.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think there's a lot of... I think that they dropped the ball on this before the system was even out. And they had a chance to probably fix a lot of these problems. And they did address a lot of them that originally were announced with the system.
Yeah.
But they didn't address all of them. And the price, I think, kind of stuck with people. And they were like, well, why am I going to get this one and get a PS4 that's cheaper? And it doesn't have a lot of this crap that you guys are putting in here and making me do. And, I mean, the numbers have shown that it's not been selling well. I mean, it's still outselling like the Wii U, but it's not selling anywhere near what the PS4 was selling.
Right. And a lot of people think, especially now, that they'll eventually overtake PlayStation, but, you know, I think the damage is still done. But can you imagine maybe a year and a half down the line, if you went and bought an Xbox One, and then this new hot game comes out, and you get it, and it's like, oh, you need the Kinect.
Oh man, that'd be so infuriating. Like, what if
I would be angry.
What if like the next version of Halo has been designed to use the Kinect and there's no Kinect?
I probably wouldn't play it. I'll be honest. I hate motion controls. I think you and I discussed this one time. Like, as much as I want to support Nintendo, I hate motion controls. And like the Wii, I liked my Wii, but I almost any game that I could, I plug a GameCube controller in there.
Well, there's a lot of games, too, and like this is one of the things with the Wii U, is that the Wii U, the motion control is there, but... Because I just recently got a Wii U, truthfully, but a lot of the games... Yeah, I did. A lot of the games that I've looked at, they're like, you don't really... You know, there's not a lot of motion control. There's stuff for them, but it's nothing like it was with the Wii, where it's like you need to be swinging swords and doing all this.
Yeah.
You know, in some of the Wii games, even near the end, they weren't that bad. Like, the Smash Brothers game didn't require it.
No, I played the Smash Brothers game with a controller. The only thing that's really stupid, I hate about that, you have to turn your Wii controller on to get into Smash Brothers. then you can, put that aside and use the GameCube controllers, which it just seems so weird, but yeah.
Yep. So, there you go. That's Microsoft's move to, I guess, try to repair the damage they've done with the Xbox One.
I think they may eventually do what they're saying. I think with this move, they may eventually overtake PlayStation 4 in sales.
I don't. This is not going to help them overtake them. What's going to help them overtake them, if anything does, is if they can make some game that people just have to get an Xbox One and run out there for. And I don't see that happening.
Well, Halo's going to be a huge seller for them. Destiny. There was one other one I was thinking of the other day.
Truthfully, and the more people I talk to about this generation of consoles, the more of them are just like, I don't really care about it. I'm just going to wait.
Yeah. The only one I don't see being a big console seller for them is Titanfall, and I think that's because most of the people who really wanted it, if they didn't already have it, at this point they can just wait and get it on the 360.
Well, this is something I didn't talk to you about, but it's something to bring up in discussion of these consoles, is that so Watch Dogs is getting ready to come out.
Sure,
I think it comes out next week.
27th or something like that?
Yeah, so next week.
Yeah, I saw the first review went out for it, and it got pretty good reviews on pretty good scores on the first review.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that the gameplay is probably going to be really good. I'm not questioning the gameplay. It's going to be good probably across all the systems. It's just the way it is. PC, PS4, Xbox One, whatever.
Right.
But they're already saying that the Xbox One and PS4 can't support it in true high definition because the consoles just really aren't designed to do that because it's crap hardware. And they're playing in these weird ratios. Like, I want to say the PS4 is playing at 600 I don't know. Let me look.
No, it was 900, I think.
Yeah, 900. That's it. And
which I did think was kind of odd. I was like, that sounds weird.
Yeah, let me try to get the exact numbers on it. But that and the Xbox One both are playing in some weird aspect ratios because they can't actually handle it. So, if you want to actually get this game to look as good as it possibly can, you're going to have to play it on the PC. Which, that's crazy because these consoles are supposed to be next gen, so you would think, well, they should be able to hold up and do all this stuff, which really, playing in 1080p is not next gen. That's the past generation. Yeah. And it can't even do that? Yeah. What is the damn problem with your hardware? It's because this generation of consoles is garbage. They just were like, we need to get something else out there. Just crap in a box and send it out to people, and the suckers are going to buy it. And that's probably what's happening. Most people I know, too, who have bought them are not pleased. They're like, I don't know. I haven't even used it. They're all dusty.
Well, a lot of people I know that bought them have used it more for media. I have a friend who has an Xbox One, and he uses it mainly to watch TV and to play stuff that he could have played on his 360.
Exactly. You basically bought a $600 TV box that also plays 360 games. Thank you.
And I asked him, I was like, are you sad that you paid the extra $100 to get the Kinect with it or whatever? And he said, no, because I really like messing with my wife with the Kinect, because he'll come in and while she's watching something, say Xbox off or something. And I'm like, so you paid $100 to troll your wife? And he's like, yeah, but I do that all the time. So yeah,
that's cool. He's got $100 to throw away on trolling his wife. But I could probably troll his wife for a lot cheaper than $100. Email me. I'll tell you how. But anyways, it's not worth it. A lot of people I know who are huge gamers who have always owned an Xbox and a PlayStation of whatever number they're at are like, I'm probably not going to buy these. If I do buy them, it'll probably be near the end of their run, and then I'll just buy everything really cheap.
Yeah, I know I've said this before, but I'm sticking with it. I will buy one of them, but this will be the first console generation I don't buy both of them.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people are probably like, what the hell are you talking about? How you bought a Wii U? I bought a Wii U, but I bought a Wii U because, one, it was only $300 compared to the other systems, and there are immediately games I wanted to play on it.
Right.
Mario Kart 8 in a week, and then Smash Brothers coming
Brothers.
out, and then
Plus,
there's other stuff that's out too.
Yeah, the new Super Mario Brothers, I got to play a little bit of that. The 3D land or whatever. That's really fun. So you'll enjoy that. And if half of the E3 rumors I know that we're going to discuss soon are true, you'll have a couple more games coming out pretty, within the next year or so.
Exactly. And so I feel that in the long run, the $300 for that and the games I've already got and started playing on it, it's worth it. But when I look at like the other two consoles, I'm like, there really aren't any games that are exclusive to those that I want to play. And most of the ones that are on there, I can get on the PC, and my PC is good enough to actually play them in real HD. I don't have to like get some kind of crap hardware to downgrade it to like 900, whatever, so I can actually play it. I can play it in a full aspect ratio.
Kyle, are you sure you're just not a part of the PC Master Race? Are you sure
I am a PC Master Race, because the problem with consoles is that they've always held back PC gaming. And then the moment that they stop holding it back, they make a new console that is almost designed to hold it back.
I will say that there's definitely times where you're like, you guys could do better. You know this could be better. Now, the problem is that their argument, and something that's probably true to a degree, is if they did do too much better, they'd have to charge even more for the consoles to make it worth their while. However, I don't know. I think there's got to be a better solution for that.
Sometimes I wonder if it's because it's one of these things like, oh, we could have made something that was a lot better, and it would have been kind of expensive, but we don't want to do that because then we'd have to work that much harder to produce something that much better for the next generation. So we just slowly increase it over time and do it really cheap so we can make money on it.
Yeah, well,
so like they're purposely holding it back.
Right. Also, it's profit margins. The problem is, let's say you did make this better and more comparable to a PC. Well, you would have to up the price to make it more, but you would have less people buying it because of it being more. So your profit margin would go down.
Yeah.
So that's something they have to consider. Either way, like I said, if you are a person who wants an Xbox One for whatever reason, I think this is a plus for you until hopefully we won't have that problem that we discussed about needing the Kinect for certain games.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and the rest of our video game news was depressing today.
Yeah, it was all depressing. Well, let's hope in the upcoming week or so we'll get some good E3 rumors of things that will make us happy that we can discuss. And then E3 will come out, and it won't be a disappointment like it always is.
You're hoping, yeah.
We're hoping. I mean, 9 times out of 10, most of what comes out of E3 from the major companies like Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, it is kind of depressing. It's just it's like they don't really understand what people want, and they just do what they want to do, especially Microsoft in the last year or so. Yeah. But this may be the year they surprise us. We'll have to see.
One can hope.
One can only hope. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of Comics and Controllers. If you want to email us, maybe there's some E3 rumors you saw you want us to talk about, or maybe there's some questions you want to ask us or hear us discuss, you can email us at comicsandcontrollers@gmail.com. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at ZombieJesus here. Where can they follow you at, Steven?
On Twitter, also at Steven Wilds.
All right, so there you go. Until next time, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Steven.
Have a good one.